The church was quiet in a way that felt almost sacred, like even the air was holding its breath. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, painting soft colors across the wooden pews and red carpet aisle. It was the kind of silence that wrapped around you, heavy but comforting. At the front, near the altar, a small girl knelt alone. Her tiny hands were clasped so tightly together that her knuckles had turned pale. Her head was bowed, her curly hair falling gently around her face. She couldn't have been older than 5 or 6. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, but in the stillness of the church, every word carried. God. I just want a dad, like other kids. She paused, as if waiting for an answer. But the silence remained. I promise I'll be good. I won't ask for toys. I just want someone who comes to my school, someone who holds my hand, someone who stays. Her voice trembled at the last word. A tear slipped down her cheek, landing softly on the carpet below. She didn't know that she wasn't alone. In the far corner of the church, seated in the shadows, a man had been listening. Dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, he didn't look like someone who belonged to silence. He looked like power, like control, like someone who had built an empire with his own hands. His name was Ethan Cole, a billionaire CEO known for his ruthless decisions, his sharp mind, and a life that revolved around profit and precision. He wasn't supposed to be there that morning. Ethan didn't believe in slowing down, let alone sitting in a quiet church. But something had pulled him in, something he couldn't quite explain. Maybe it was the exhaustion that success couldn't cure. Maybe it was the loneliness he never admitted to. Or maybe it was this moment. Because now, as he sat there, listening to a little girl pour her heart out to God, something inside him shifted. He leaned forward slightly, his hands clasped together, his sharp eyes softening for the first time in years. Please, the girl whispered again, her voice breaking. I don't want to be alone anymore. The words hit him harder than any business loss ever could. Ethan had everything money could buy, luxury homes, private jets, influence in rooms most people could never enter. But sitting there, in that quiet church, he realized something unsettling. He had never felt as rich as that little girl was honest. For a long moment, he didn't move. He just listened. The girl slowly lifted her head, wiping her tears with the sleeve of her dress. She took a deep breath, as if trying to be brave, and stood up. For a second, she looked around, her small eyes scanning the empty pews. She didn't notice him. And maybe that was why Ethan finally stood. His footsteps echoed softly as he walked forward. The girl turned, startled by the sound, her eyes widening when she saw him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Hi, he said gently, his voice calm, nothing like the commanding tone he used in boardrooms. She hesitated, then gave a small, shy nod. Hi. Were you praying? He asked, even though he already knew the answer. She nodded again, clutching her hands together. Yes. Ethan crouched down slightly so he was at her level. That was a very honest prayer. Her eyes dropped to the floor. Do you think God hears me? The question was simple. But it carried a weight that made Ethan pause. He had spent years believing in numbers, strategies, and outcomes. Things you could see. Things you could control. Faith had never been part of his vocabulary. And yet, here he was. I think, he said slowly, choosing his words carefully, God hears the ones who speak from the heart the most. She looked up at him then, a flicker of hope in her eyes. Really? He nodded. What's your name? He asked. Lily. Lily, he repeated, as if committing it to memory. That's a beautiful name. She gave a tiny smile, the kind that looked like it hadn't visited her face in a while. Do you come here alone? He asked gently. She nodded. My mom works a lot, she says I can come here because it's safe. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. Safe. A place where a child comes to ask God for a father. He stood up slowly, then extended his hand. Would you like to sit for a bit? Lily looked at his hand, then at his face. There was no fear in her eyes, just curiosity. Slowly, she placed her small hand in his. And in that moment, something unexpected happened. For the first time in years, Ethan Cole didn't feel like a CEO. He felt human. They sat together in the front pew. Lily's feet didn't even touch the ground, swinging slightly as she looked around. "Do you have kids?" she asked suddenly. Ethan shook his head. "No." She tilted her head. "Why not?" He let out a soft breath. "I guess, life got busy." She thought about that for a second, then said something that hit him like truth always does, simple and undeniable. "Maybe you were just waiting." Ethan blinked. Waiting. For what? For who? He looked at her, this little girl who had walked into a church alone, who had asked God for something so pure it made everything else seem meaningless.